Just how bad is the situation with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers after falling to 3-5 on Thursday night? And what can or should be done in the next 4 days to help? And it's time we had the conversation about whether or not Tom Brady is the problem or the solution. It's about to get heavy around here, guys, on the Locked On Bucs podcast.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to the Locked On Bucs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And we thank you for making us your first listener, your first view of the day. I am David Harrison covering your Tampa Bay Buccaneers for SI's BucsGameDay.com. And today's episode is sponsored by Simply Safe Home Security, whose Fast Protect technology exclusively from Simply Safe gives you 24/7 monitoring agents to capture evidence, to accurately verify a threat for faster police response. There's no safe like Simply Safe. Visit simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL to learn more. Is Tom Brady part of the problem or part of the solution? And I think right now, guys, the answer is yes to both. I think that Tom Brady is simultaneously part of the problem, but if the Buccaneers are going to right this thing, I think he's going to be a part of the solution. Like that's just the way that I think it stands right now. But let's look at this. First and foremost, where does problem resonate with when you're talking about Tom Brady? Players have been known to flock to Tom, right? I mean, going back, you look at Randy Moss and just over the years, and the Buccaneers have experienced, right? Antonio Brown, Rob Gronkowski, all coming to Tampa to play with Tom Brady, guys taking pay cuts or not taking pay cuts, but taking less money in new contracts to stick around or to join and play again with Tom Brady. That is kind of his mystique, that he's like this talent magnet that people just want to play with him. They want to play for him. But that's where this year is different, right? And there have been previous years, like if you're an old head like me and you've watched a lot of football and a lot of Tom Brady, I mean, Tom Brady got drafted into the National Football League the same year I joined the Army. I've retired. Like I'm retired from that career. Tom is still going. So that's how long I've been watching Tom Brady play football is my entire adult life. You know what I mean? He's been an NFL quarterback. I mean, he didn't really get going until 2001, obviously, but you get the idea. And there have been moments where we had these questions of, is Tom finally done? His father time finally caught up to him, and he's always been able to prove one way or another that it hadn't. But those are all talent questions. And this doesn't feel as much of a talent issue. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I see the overthrows, I see the underthrows, I see the dirt balls, you know what I mean? And those are definitely an issue, but I don't feel the same reverence around him from his teammates that you're used to seeing. And, there were some times where the cameras, on the Amazon Prime broadcast, and, it's dangerous. You don't want to read too much into a whole lot of things, but there were just times he was talking to Mike Evans after one play, and it was less Tom talking to somebody who's like, yes, Tom, yes, Mr. Brady, yes, legendary, greatest of all time quarterback, and more so two teammates who were just not on the same page, and we're both going to have our say. And then there was a moment where he was talking to Robert Hainsey. He got on the sideline, talked to Blaine Gabbert, talked to his coach, and then he was talking to Robert Hainsey. And before I'd seen Tom and Robert talk, and Robert was like this, this student of the game, and like, this is my quarterback, and I'm going to listen to everything he has to say. And that interaction didn't look like that from a body language standpoint and from an interaction standpoint, didn't look like that. And that's a shift, and you go back to Pittsburgh, and it's not the first time we've seen Tom Brady yell at somebody or yell at an offensive lineman, but that one was the one that really gained traction. And Robert Hainsey actually is one of the linemen who came out and said that he actually appreciates it. He enjoys it, And I thought then, like that's the company line. And you have to say it, I think, if you're Robert Hainsey, you know what I mean? I get it. But then you notice against Carolina, like it was almost like intentional that Tom wasn't getting fired up and wasn't yelling at people. And if that's the case, then that means somebody didn't like it. Like Tom's not doing that, and the Buccaneers aren't doing that simply because the media is talking about it. No, that's happening because people inside the organization or in the locker room don't actually appreciate it. And I think that's what's happening is there's a little bit of this situation where it's one thing to be a barking, screaming leader when you're not at fault, and when it's getting results. But when you're part of the problem, and that's where the overthrows and the underthrows on deep balls and the dirt balls and the missing Kyle Rudolph when he's coming open in the end zone on an out route and missing 2 crossing receivers right in front of your face on a critical short yardage play in the red zone, when those things start happening and now you're also not making plays, right? You kind of look at Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers, like when you're also part of the problem on the execution standpoint and you're yelling at everybody, like that doesn't go over as well, I don't think. And that's kind of what I'm reading right now when I look at Tom Brady and this team. It looks like a team that is frankly devoid of leadership. And it's not just on Tom. Like I look at the defensive side of the ball and I love Levante, but he's never really kind of been the heart and soul of this team, right? He's been a fan favorite. He's been a consistent veteran, but he's never been like the heart and soul the way that like a Jameis was or a Quan Alexander was, or even Gerald McCoy at a period of time was. And Devin White is supposed to be that guy. But again, Devin's a guy. And we're going to talk about it here a little bit with Logan Robinson of BucsGameDay.com of, he and the coach are getting into it and he's missing assignments and taking really bad angles. I mean, really bad angles. I mean, if you've been watching Bucs football for a while, you've seen some bad angles on defense, but Devin is taking some angles that are just next level bad, right? This looks like a team that is devoid of leadership. And I don't think the coaching staff has it doesn't look like they have what it takes to get it under control, and there's got to be a player that stands up and takes control of this thing. And someone has to be that spark. I heard Ross Jackson of the Locked On Saints podcast talking about Alvin Kamara being that voice and that guy in the locker room to try to wake everybody up within the Saints organization. Who's that guy with the Bucs? Who's going to be that guy in Tampa Bay? I don't know who it's going to be, but right now it's not anybody wearing a captain's patch. I can tell you that. So what happened with Tom Brady and this Buccaneers team? Why is this relationship degrading? Is it the time off? Is it the personal issues? These are all hard things to talk about, but I mean, I think that has a lot to do with it because it's one thing when you're the guy who is doing everything right and you're, the ball's where it needed to be. I'm just not where I needed to be. But when you're yelling at me or you're looking at me on national television, like I'm the dumb one and the ball's not even where it's supposed to go and you're the miscommunication of this, that's where things get a little bit different. So what's the solution? I mean, do you get rid of Tom Brady? Do you tell Tom like, hey buddy, go back to your family, thanks for coming back, we'll roll with Blaine Gabbert or Kyle Trask for the rest of the year? I don't think so. I think if I'm correct in what I'm reading, and again, this is all body language, right? I don't have like a player inside the locker room telling me that these things are happening, but like if I'm reading the body language right and I'm reading kind of the organizational feel correctly, which that's kind of my, that's my foothold is organizational leadership and reading these kinds of things. So I'm confident in what I'm saying. I'm not saying I'm 100% correct. I'm just saying I'm confident in what I'm reading. Then Tom has to adopt that deployment mentality, right? We go back a couple of weeks. He talked about the season being a military deployment type deal. Look, man, if you're going to be here, you got to be here. Like you have to be one of the guys. There's no skipping meetings. There's no skipping walkthroughs. There's no skipping taking a veteran rest day other than like your normal veteran rest day, right? There's no special treatment. You can't be the GOAT. You got to be the quarterback. And that is, I think, one of the biggest changes this season. Now, if Tom decides, there's been a lot of conversation of Gisele's ultimatum. If he decides to take the family route, hey, man, more power to you. You know what I mean? Bucs fans are not going to be happy. Teammates are probably going to feel a little betrayed and all that stuff to leave midseason. But at the end of the day, you got to do what's best for your family, your life. I don't like that's just kind of my concept of it. If you're going to be here, be tuned in, be committed, or go do something else. Speaking of doing something else, don't leave your home unprotected because there are people looking to take your stuff. For a burglar, your home is like their end zone. So you're going to need the absolute strongest defense that you can muster. And for me, that's why you Simply Safe Home Security, because at Simply Safe, your security is the only thing that matters. I live in a semi-secluded area. I talked about this on the live episode. I've got like a Walmart, I got a gas station, all that stuff, but there's not a lot between me and those locations. And Simply Safe provides me with 24/7 professional monitoring. Their agents call when the moment that a threat is detected, and they'll even dispatch police and emergency services, even if I'm not home, even if I can't be reached. And their equipment is fully customizable. I customized my set. My wife and I sat down, picked out what was right for us. You can do the same thing. They've got outdoor cameras, indoor cameras, night vision cameras, panic buttons, glass sensors, anything you can pretty much think of. They've got it. Customize the perfect system for your home in just a few minutes at simplysafe.com/LockedOnNFL. Save 20% on the Simply Safe security system when you sign up for an interactive monitoring plan and get your first month free. That's Simply Safe. simplysafe.com/locked on NFL, SIMPLI, simplysafe.com/locked on NFL to learn more. There's no safe like Simply Safe. All right, guys, as you were watching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fall to 3-5, so too was Logan Robinson of BucsGameDay.com on hand there at Raymond James Stadium, on Twitter at Logan's Twitty. Be nice because he's my boss. Don't get me in trouble. Logan, appreciate you joining us here on Locked On Bucs. Caleb, hello to you as well. I know you're there. I don't know if you want to poke your head in and say hello to the good people. Kyle Trask fan club president right there, Caleb Skinner. Bucs game day on ground. So look, first two drives, they come out, you get a touchdown, you get a field goal, you got a lead. I don't know if things look superbly different necessarily or just better executed, but from the press box view, man, what happened after the first two drives to the offense?
It just felt like things fell apart. The consistency just went out the window, it felt like, for the most part. And that's been a trend for Tom Brady and this offense. Yeah. And a lot of miscommunication, too, with Mike Evans throughout the game, and it kind of hurt them in multiple ways and costed them almost getting a touchdown a few times. And you also saw where Mike Evans, long deep shot from Tom Brady, goes in the hands, but still, if that's thrown a little bit farther in stride, Mike Evans takes that for 6. So just a few things that, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the last few weeks, it's just a trend. Yeah. And Brady after the game just felt depleted. I mean, I've never seen him with not any kind of energy like that. It sounds depressing, and it stings definitely if you're a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan right now looking at that offense.
Yeah, and that's something, I literally just talked about that in the first segment of today's episode. I talked about it in the live about the lack of passion and discipline coming from this team, and that just kind of embodies it right there. Let's talk about that real quick, though, because obviously you guys don't hear the television broadcast, right? But Amazon Prime, Kirk Herbstreit, I think he was just looking out for a fellow quarterback, but he kept talking about continuity and these guys not having a lot of experience together. But this is Mike Evans. Chris Godwin is on the field. I know that, Kyle Rudolph maybe has a little bit of an excuse, but Leonard Fournette, do you buy the continuity issue, or do you feel like there's something else going on?
There might be. There's at times where you feel like Tampa doesn't want to be out there and they want to just let this game go by. And it did the same way for Baltimore, where you let them hang around. And then eventually, Harbaugh and Lamar Jackson, they're going to find yards down the field. But on Tom Brady side of things, it's just poor execution. Got to the point where he's throwing the ball in the dirt. It's continuous. It just seems to be a trend for him, not being able to, they played a lot more play action. There was a lot of quick passes out to the side, and they worked a lot. And I liked seeing that from Leftwich on first down instead of going with the regular Leonard Fournette run up the middle, see what happens. That's a waste of a down. Now you're throwing off to the side and give it a chance there, and you're giving Chris Godwin to make a defender miss and get a potential, 6-7 yards where, then you can go get a run there and you can utilize Leonard Fournette or Rachaad White. But, there's that. And then you look at the rushing game where you can't get over 50 yards. Doesn't get any more atrocious than that. And that doesn't help anything for Tom Brady. So then you're relying on him to pass. And definitely when you're down in the game, late in the fourth quarter too, he's having to make plays with his arm. And let's be honest, he's an older quarterback. It's not like he's playing awful, but still there's some times where he overthrew a couple of his receivers tonight, David. And it just doesn't seem like him. That just sums it up almost. It's just a really off offense after that first quarter. And you know what? Congratulations. They did get that first quarter touchdown. Took a little while, but still didn't do enough there at all.
Yeah, first opening drive touchdown of the year, first quarter touchdown of the year. But that was about the highlight of the evening. Of course, one of the lowlights of the evening, Shaquille Barrett going down. I was there in Pittsburgh when Cam Brate went down. I know that kind of the air just got sucked out of the press box. Obviously, a little bit of a different situation. Cam's was a head injury and a neck injury in the backboard and everything. But what was the atmosphere like with Shaq? I know Shaq is a guy that a lot of media members really enjoy talking to. So what was the atmosphere about Shaq? What's the update you got from the press conference?
We talked with Tom Brady and we talked with Mike Evans in the locker room, and of course heard from Todd Bowles. He told us right away early on in the press conference that it didn't look good. It seemed like it was an Achilles injury. I know there's a report out. We put out a post on Bucs Game Day regarding that, and that it could be a season-ending injury. It's a very well-liked player on this team as a leader and a guy that was putting on a show here and was having a great game, and then you see him go down. We thought up in the press box that it might have been an ankle injury, maybe hopefully just a sprain to say the least, and maybe couldn't play for the rest of the game, but you're just hoping something sprain wise. But then whenever he's immediately going on the golf cart, going into the tunnel, back to the locker room and going to get an exam, it's not really a good sign. And then we see a picture of him in a boot in the tunnel. Mike Evans, Tom Brady, saying really strong things about him and what he brings and the impact he has on this team. Yeah. And you could tell that those two guys were definitely hurt with what they saw and heard.
Yeah, and a lot of times in the situation, man, the teammates, the more they emphasize the love for you, the worse the injury tends to be. I've got beef with one of the players on this team, Logan, and it's Devin White. Captain of the defense, get live 45, supposed to be one of the young studs in the National Football League. I'm not going to poison the water. What was your take on Devin's performance on Thursday night?
Well, the one thing that we got to see up there in the press box from the Thursday Night Football broadcast was seeing Todd Bowles and Devin White kind of going at it there. It just didn't seem like they were on the same page with a few things, and sure enough wasn't on the same page for Devin White and maybe the assignments that he was missing, man, because there were some times where you're allowing a guy for the Buccaneers to go right outside of you, or then also allow a touchdown too, just not understanding, not being in the right place. It's been kind of a tougher season for him, and you rely a ton on Devin White. That's your biggest lead on defense, your star defensive player. Was looking to have a big season coming into 2022, but to see the play that he had significantly tonight, it really hurt the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I was talking with Caleb about this when we were doing our recap for Bucs Game Day. I thought too, this defense overall just looked like a lot of miscommunication and looked dead. I mean, they looked exhausted, a lot of hands on the hips, definitely in that fourth quarter there. Yep. And I know you're relying on some backups here and there, but you look at Devin White, and that's the guy that you're hoping to lead and not make mistakes. When you're the biggest leader, whenever you're the top guy on defense, you can't be making those kind of mistakes. And that's starting to become a little bit of a trend for White. And, you'd like to see him get a bounce back next week. You get a lot of rest going into this, but still not so great performance from Devin White.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we're on the same page, and obviously Todd Bowles, it might seem is on the same page with us as well. We'll see if anything comes from that situation. So the question that I got a lot in the live chat for the live stream that we did right after the game, and that I'm going to answer here myself in the next segment of this episode. Trade deadline's coming up. I mean, if the Buccaneers have any advantage from getting their butts whooped on Thursday night, it's that they now have Friday, Saturday, and Sunday and Monday to wheel and deal and see what they can make. I mean, some teams are getting ready to play, so they may not want to pull the trigger right away, but any trade deadline ideas, whether it's player out, player in, do you have a specific deal in mind, or where do you think the Bucs need to look as the trade deadline gets closer?
I think the Buccaneers could use a lot of help and in a lot of different ways. Now you look at Barrett going down. You look at him going down. That adds in a couple more things. I'm looking still at the rushing game. This is continuing to hurt the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offense. There's a guy named Cam Akers, Los Angeles Rams. We've heard the speculations. We heard the rumors. We've heard Sean McVay say there's a trade in place or something going on. They're having conversations. Nothing has really came out of that yet. I'm sure there's still discussions going on with other teams there. But tonight, 44 yards in total between Leonard Fournette and Rachaad White. That's just not going to cut it. I'm sorry. That's pathetic. If you can bring in a guy like Cam Akers to maybe help in that game. Cam Akers is a talented guy. I know you look at some film and you start out the season. He comes off after that Achilles injury last year, plays in the Super Bowl, had a slow start, had the fumbles there in the red zone. Those things can be fixed. Cam Akers is a really talented running back, performed really well for Florida State, had a really nice career there. And so I think Cam Akers is a possible addition that you could add to that running back room to hopefully find some more success if he's available, that, hopefully could add some good juice to that offense. I just seeing the numbers after these games and only 44 yards, David, that doesn't help anyone. Definitely a quarterback of Tom Brady's age. You're relying on him to throw that much. You just can't keep doing that every game.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, look, and I remember when Cam came out of college, and a lot of Buccaneers fans or Florida State fans, a lot of people wanted Cam Akers and were very upset when he didn't land with the Buccaneers. Maybe this is a chance to make amends for it. And those who aren't Florida State fans, it might be nice to see a guy come to the Buccaneers with a chip on his shoulder and maybe do better than versus the opposite direction that we've seen so much, where guys leave Tampa with the chip on their shoulder and do better for someone else. But some of you always doing a great job. Logan Robinson, BucsGameDay.com. Of course, I'm also writing there. Logan's writing there. Caleb is writing there and lurking in the shadows. Find Logan on Twitter at Logan Switty. Logan, appreciate you. Drive safe. Have a good night.
Thank you, David. Appreciate you.
Some potential trade targets for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that might be able to help rectify what's going on this season. Coming up here in a minute, but now a word from our sponsor, BetterHelp. So sometimes we struggle with being able to solve our issues, whether you just feel worn down from the day and the weight of the world resting on your shoulders, whatever it is, it can be tough to train your brain to stay in problem-solving mode when faced with all the challenges that life brings you. I think the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are experiencing some of those right now, but when you learn how to find your own solutions, there's no better feeling. You feel like you can take on the entire world. A therapist can help you as an individual become a better problem solver, making it easier to accomplish your goals, no matter how big or small they may be. If you're thinking of giving therapy a try, BetterHelp is a great option. It's convenient, accessible, affordable, and entirely online. Get matched with a therapist after filling out a brief survey and switch therapists anytime. So if you get a match and it just doesn't work out for you, you can switch. No questions asked, no hassle, no reason to explain to that person why you're moving. You get to move because it's your treatment and you deserve that option. When you want to be a better problem solver, therapy can get you there. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's betterhelp.com/lockedon. All right, guys, something that we got a lot of comments about in the live chat during the postcast, which was one of the most viewed postcasts we've had, which I was really surprised, not just because of the losing streak, because it was Thursday night, Friday morning. Super impressed by all you guys that came through and all of you listened to it afterwards, audio, video, all that stuff. Greatly appreciate you guys, especially in these rougher times to be a Bucs fan. We appreciate you guys coming through and allowing us to be a part of your daily routine. One of those people who's been here for a while, Tyler in Boston, and he took time to call us after the Thursday night's debacle. So let's go ahead and give him some time on today's episode. Let's hear from Tyler in Boston.
What's up, boys? Tyler from Boston. And, it's another bad night, prime time. And until I see something different, I guess this is just who this team is. This is who this offense is, which isn't going to keep me from watching Buccaneers football. But, boy, it's a rough watch, especially after after the first half. It was a rough watch. Offense can't stay on the field. Defense can't get off the field. Can't get takeaways to save our life, which I think is the biggest thing that we need if we're going to be a defense-first team. And we're 8 weeks in, and I don't understand. Brady and the receivers just at times are not in sync. I don't know. It's strange. I don't know what it's all about, but either way, I thought maybe the short week would help the Bucs to not overthink their game plan. Now my hope is that the pseudo bye week will help them so they're better prepared for this playoff rematch against the Rams. And, well, I'd say thank goodness we play in the NFC South, but to a degree, I still think it's true, but we got to get back in that dub column because Falcons and Saints, man, they're knocking on the door. So, and Ryan Suckup, we trust. Go Bucs.
All right, Tyler, I love the Ryan Suckup shout out. Probably like one of the only Buccaneers that can really say he's doing his part. And yeah, look, the Buccaneers are 3-5. Currently second place in the NFC South, right? Because the Falcons are 3-4. They've yet to play, obviously, their Week 8 matchup. They face the Carolina Panthers. I mean, look, guys, if the Carolina Panthers win over the Atlanta Falcons, then you've got a three-way tie, Falcons, Bucks, Panthers, all 3-5, sitting atop the NFC South with tiebreakers to determine and all that stuff. If Falcons win, they're 4-4, and they take sole possession of the NFC South. And it's looking like the NFC South, you're either winning the division or you're going home. So, again, the Buccaneers got to figure this thing out because they've got another game against Falcons that, they beat the Falcons already. They got another one against them. They beat the Saints. They got another one against them. But they lost to the Panthers. So the Panthers keep pace, and then they have to face off again for a potential total tiebreaker. That may not be a good situation. So appreciate you calling, Tyler. Appreciate everybody else who came through in the chats. And then, of course, in the voicemail box. We will get to as many as we can throughout the week, as we always do. I know we get a lot of calls, guys, nowadays, and so we can't get to all of them. We try to spread out the wealth as much as we can. So if you didn't get in last week, call again. We will try our best to mix it up with voices on the episode. So a lot of questions that I got during the live chat, during the live postcast, was about the trade deadline coming up on Tuesday. So Monday being the last full day, the teams can make moves. Obviously, a lot of NFL teams have their games left to play, like Sunday, Monday night, all that stuff. So they may not be too motivated to make a lot of deals, but some of these teams might still be willing to make deals. So you heard Logan, again, from BucsGameDay.com talk about Cam Akers. I know a lot of you guys wanted Cam to be a Buccaneer when he came out of Florida State, so that would probably appeal to you guys. But I've got some other names too. The first name, Elijah Moore, New York Jets wide receiver. The New York Jets are doing pretty well for themselves these days, but Elijah Moore has been underused, underutilized, under-targeted, and has officially requested a trade. That's public knowledge. It's been made public. Quarterback Zach Wilson was asked about it, during the week, and said that he's just kind of making sure that Elijah understands that his quarterback has his back, even if he feels like maybe he's not getting a whole lot of love from the team. Look, his NFL draft comp was Antonio Brown. You know what I mean? And from a talent standpoint, that's kind of the shell that he fits. He's not AB, right? But that's kind of the shell that he fits. And if this team is going to have to rely on short passes and slants and all this other stuff, bring in a guy that can do that, right? Russell Gage was kind of supposed to be that guy a little bit, wasn't healthy Thursday, so he didn't play. Bring in Elijah Moore, a young guy who obviously is hungry, wants to contribute, and see if he can't do that. Some other names, two more from the exact same team, Denver Broncos. Yeah, Bradley Chubb. And I wouldn't have said this before the injury to Shaquille Barrett, but with the injury to Shaquille Barrett, I think you kick the tires on Bradley Chubb, call the Denver Broncos, find out what they want, see if it's worth it. And then KJ Hamler, he's not an Antonio Brown type. He's more of a Tavon Austin, I think was his NFL draft comp, but still a short, intermediate type of receiver that can help out. If you're going to stick with this quick passing game, you got to get some guys that can help spread the field a little bit. So those are three names that I think the Buccaneers should look at. I think Bradley Chubb is probably the biggest one, Elijah Moore after that, and then KJ Hamler, just because he's kind of a nice talent. They've had some success with Penn State guys, obviously, in the past. But Bradley Chubb, I think, is the biggest one at this point in time with what's going on with Shaquille Barrett, unfortunately. So those are some ideas for the trade deadline. Again, thanks for all of you who dropped in comments, questions during the live chat. That is something that we're going to do every week, whether it's James and I or one of us. We will drop a postcast, and then we will drop our full episode, which is what this one is. And, of course, I thank you for making the Locked On Bucs podcast first listen or your first view of the day. Now check out Locked On Sports today. I was on that to talk to Peter Bukowski about Tom Brady and Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So if you want even more, head on over there and hear even more. Go beyond the scoreboard, behind the scenes with your local experts and insight that only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports today, available wherever you're watching or listening to this, YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. We will be back. James is going to be back on Sunday, and then he and I will be back together Tuesday. He will be back Monday. I will be back with him on Tuesday, and then we're back to business, and the Rams are up next for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I'm David Harrison. Till we speak again, make sure you're checking out everything that I'm writing at bucksgameday.com. Check out everything that James is doing at bucksnation.com. Please like, follow, and subscribe on YouTube or your podcaster of choice. If you got questions or topics you want to share, send them into lockedonbuckspodcast@gmail.com or call in like Tyler did, be a part of the show, 813-444-5841. If you're out and about, please be safe. Be kind to one another. Bucs fans, fire those cannons, man, because you deserve it for dealing with everything you deal with. Thank you for joining us right here at Locked On Bucs.